Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. Name of the program is called Can We Talk? We are here again this weekend. I'm here with my son, Charles.
Charles Scott Jr., how you guys doing? And we'll take this episode right at the end of February. We're heading into spring, so this is like my favorite time of the year because this is like the time real estate kind of wakes up. People are calling me. They haven't talked to me since November. Holidays are over, and we're getting back into what we call the buying market.
Right now is a very exciting time in the real estate market. There's a lot of things that are happening. As you know, we have the politics has all changed. Spring, as my son just said, is coming into focus. And I'm getting a lot of calls. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about today, what's happened in the last 5 years, bringing everything forward to what's going on right now. We're getting a lot of calls from people that in the last 5 years didn't purchase or wanted to buy a house, and they held off, and they even though now a lot of pundits out there say, oh, this is interest rates are high or the properties are scarce. But there's a whole lot of people that all of a sudden everybody wants to buy a house, everybody wants to buy a multi. Why is that? What's going on out there? And I can tell you what it all boils down to in one word: rents.
Yes, rents have gone up dramatically. I will say since COVID, rents have steadily moved up. There was an article, I believe, online about Connecticut. Rents have gone up about 60% since COVID.
With the rents going up, people are automatically very motivated to try and buy something because, when the rents were, a two-bedroom, example, a two-bedroom house in the Fairfield County area, Bridgeport area, two-bedroom, you could have been, going back $900.
Oh, wow.
That same two-bedroom apartment now could be, $1,700, $1,800. And figure it out. That's about, a 60% increase, 70% increase. Well, the pay didn't go up 60% or 70%. The pay might have gone up 10%, but the cost of housing has gone up 60%. And so this is happening all over, but especially up in the Northeast. So we have a lot of these people now, their rents have gone up, and a lot of the landlords came in and they're buying properties. The property that was selling for, let's say, a two-family house back in 2019, around COVID, before COVID, two-family house was probably somewhere around $250,000.
Sounds about right.
Now that same two-family house is around $450,000.
Yes.
So here you go. You have a situation where, you got to point blank look at this. I tried to get a lot of people back then to get motivated to buy a house. And we used to always I love my landlord.
I remember, honestly,
tell them what
if I go way back, I remember back in 2009, 2008, talking about 16 years ago, interest rates were 2%, 3%, trying to rally people to buy a house, buy a house. It was right after the recession. People weren't really gung-ho to buy a house, but imagine if you did. So people always ask me, when's the time to buy a house? When's the time to buy a house? I say when you're prepared, when you're ready to buy a house. Because look at the history. The history's on the wall, writing's on the wall.
And we don't, right now is a good time if you look back in history. Suppose let's go 10 years forward, and let's say the cost of buying a house, a multi-family house 10 years from now in the same area is $700,000, okay? And that's not too far-fetched. You know how close we are to New York? New York is, hour away, 45 minutes away? You go to New York City, a multi-family house is $3 million, $4 million.
Exactly.
It's the rents are $5,000 a month. $4,000 for a studio. So we have all of these people coming here. So 10 years from now, people will be saying, boy, back in 2025, I remember when prices were real low.
Exactly, I'm saying.
You could get a house for $400,000, $500,000. So you got to look at that. It's everything is going to be in comparison. Now might be the best time in the world to buy a house for this time in history.
Yeah.
Just like 5 years ago was.
I want to mention the C word. I've been hearing about the last 5 years. People say, When's it gonna crash? I see on Facebook people wishing the market will crash so I can go buy a house. Well, the market crash, you're not going to be able to buy a house. What bank's going to loan to you? What we're going to see right now, like we've been seeing a correction. We're not going to see a down, I'll say 50%, 60% cut like we did in 2008, because a lot of the mortgages right now are with people with great credit, very good credit. I'll say what? They said a majority of mortgages right now are less than 5%. So with these people not selling their houses, it's putting kind of a tight inventory crunch, what we're seeing in Bridgeport and throughout Connecticut.
Yeah, what you need to do is if you are looking to get involved in real estate is you need to call us. You see the number right down there. Give us a call. Every situation is different. Everybody's got a different situation. And, it always, makes me think when people call and they say, well, people say, I said, what people? Who are the people that you are talking to? What are they saying? Are you talking to someone who never bought a house? So what are they saying to you?
Or someone that bought a house in the 90s or 80s, they said, I never had to do all that. What? Interest rates, inspections, you just buy the house. But things have obviously changed over the last 30 years.
Yeah, you've got to take into consideration who you're talking to and what kind of conversation you're having with those types of people, because
exactly.
Everything is totally different. I had a lady that called me recently and she said, Mr. Scott, I hear you know a lot about real estate, and I want to know what is the law for me, someone buying a house and someone having to move the furniture or move out. And I said, well, there's not a law, it's what you got in your contract. The law doesn't tell you the law is sort of like guidelines. But if you have a buyer and you have a seller, it's what the buyer and the seller agree to. If you agree to buy someone's house and you agree to be out at the closing and you're not out, well, you can't go and say, well, the law says I can stay here. No, you agreed to move out. And if you say, well, other people told me this, well, maybe other people agreed to something that you didn't agree to.
Exactly.
Their contract is different from your contract. It's all what's in the contract. That's what you got to do.
Take this point and make information to people. As far as when you're looking for a realtor, make sure your realtor knows what they're doing. As far as knows the area you're looking in, has your best interests in mind. Give us a call. My father's been doing this for 40 years. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. We know the area. We know the programs. A lot of these agents will you'll plan a house. They'll say, hey, you want to put an offer in? Let's put an offer in. But you got to do research on the house. You want to make sure the house fits your mortgage.
There's a lot of things in purchasing a property. For example, when you get a pre-approved for a mortgage, all pre-approvals are not even the same.
They're not all the same.
First step in buying a house is you got to go to the mortgage company and they'll tell you how much money they are going to give you. That's going to determine where you're going to look for that house. If the mortgage person tells you you qualify for $400,000, you're not going and looking for $1 million homes. You can wish and you can hope and you can pray on it, but if someone has $1 million home and they're going to sell it to you for $400,000, then let's put it this way: they always say something like the odds of getting hit by a buffalo in downtown New York.
Better chance of winning the Powerball than that.
A better chance of winning the Powerball, and that's the big Powerball. That's the Mega Millions. That's the Mega Millions. Because things like that just don't happen all the time.
And I want to also mention, you made a good point. You get a pre-approval for $500,000 from one bank, and you get another pre-approval from another bank for $400,000. This is a real question we had one day. You cannot combine those to buy a house for $900,000. No. Remember, it's per bank. You're taking out one mortgage, not double mortgages.
And people, you can go to 4 different banks and get 4 different pre-approval amounts, and they can take in the same information. You might say, well, Scott, how can that happen? How can you have 4 different banks give you 4 different pre-approvals based upon the same information that you gave each one of them? Because one might be considering this interest rate. Maybe their rate is a little different. One might be considering you're putting more money down or you're buying down the rate. In other words, you're going to give them a lot of money down and they're going to use some of that money for their profits. Therefore, they'll give you a lower interest rate. One might be considering the house that you're buying and they might factor in lower taxes. The other one might consider higher taxes. One might say a big factor right now we're running into is insurance.
Yep.
One mortgage company might say, well, hey, you're buying a 3-family house, so we have it estimated that the insurance is going to be $5,000. However, the insurance might be $8,000.
Exactly.
So therefore, everything is changing. Until you sit down and you know every fact about that property, you can't really, they can give you it always in the small print in the bottom of the pre-approval say this is based upon estimates and you finding a property and we have the final say as to reviewing your documents.
And that's when the underwriting comes in. Also remember, it's a good idea to shop around for a mortgage. Remember, some of these banks have special programs specific to that bank, and they may be privy to use like, or what's it called, time to own, a program where only certain banks in the state and certain people can use. So remember, it's good to shop around, ask your realtor, they may have some recommendations, but don't just take one mortgage and go with that.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and when we come on this program, we tell you about situations that occur to us
Real life situations.
During the week. We run into all kinds of situations where people come in and they sit down and the information gets conflicted. I have a situation that happened recently where a person came in and they got pre-approved by a national bank. And, everybody knows this bank, the banks all across America. And first thing they said is, okay, I got pre-approved by this bank. I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, did you meet with the loan officer? And she said, nope. I said, well, how did you do the pre-approval? Oh, I called the 800 number. I gave them all the information. And then they told me what I was approved for. And I says, oh, okay. I said, what else did you do? She said, nothing. I says, I didn't want to say, you got to be careful how you things you say to people.
Yeah.
Well, I started to say, well, that's not worth the paper it's written on.
Exactly.
And then they get mad and they say, well, Mr. Scott, how do you know that when you're not the mortgage person? What do you know? Well, I know, and so you got to be very careful how you say things. So I said, well, let's look at this and see what you have here. And so I know what to do. I go all the way down to the bottom of the paper.
Fine print.
To the fine print. And the fine print says, the estimate that you received is based on the final approval of receiving your documents, your pay stub, your tax returns, your bank statements. And when we receive those items, then we will come up with a determination as to what you are approved for. This is an estimate based upon our phone conversation. So I'm saying, okay, whatever you tell them on the phone is what they are going to base everything on.
Exactly.
So let's say you make, for example, simplify it. You make $50,000 a year. That's $1,000 a week, 52 weeks in a year. So, okay, $50,000. So the person on the other end is going to say, okay, salary, $50,000 is what this person makes, okay? But now they get your actual pay stub. On the pay stub, it says, okay, pay for that week, $1,000. And the minus, for example, say generalize, $200 a week child support. So therefore, you made $1,000 a week. They took $200 out for that.
Left with 800.
Then over here, they took out another amount for, let's say, retirement plan, insurance plan, this plan, that
Car
plan.
note.
So your net that you brought home was $700. So your net gross is $700. So now you're not at $50,000 no more. You're at $35,000 because once they see the actual pay stub, that's what they're looking for. They're only going, that paper you have, that piece of paper, is only based upon what you told them on the phone. So now they start looking into things and they start seeing things. And when now let's say they look at your bank statement. So now they're looking at the bank statement. They're saying, we got the bank statement. Every month they're taking out another $150 here. What's this $150 that they're taking out every month from your bank statement? And they'll say, oh, well, that was a bill that I had and I paid it. They get paid, so they're deducting $150 out of my bank account. Oh, so you're really not bringing home $750. Now you got more deductions. So see, that fine print says once we review everything that you send in, then we will give you the final say.
And then also what we see a lot around, especially people around my age, you might have some student loans are in forbearance or deferred. They're going to count those. They're not disappearing. They're going to become active while you're living in this house. The bank doesn't want that to become active, and now you can't afford the house, and all of a sudden you're in foreclosure.
So in a situation like that, remember, getting back to the point, this person, let's say, calls an 800 number. So they're getting advice from a person in a call center who may be in Texas. That person's sitting there in that cubicle, and all these calls are coming in from Connecticut, from New Jersey, California, Chicago. They're not out there investigating everything. Their job is to sit there all day with the earphones on and maybe talk to 150 people.
Exactly.
So they're like, okay, next. Boom, on the phone. Yeah, well, how much do you make? Okay, I'll send you out a letter. Boom. Next person. So they're counting that, hey, sooner or later, something's going to stick. If they give out 50 pre-approvals for that day, maybe 3 or 4 people actually will buy something.
Exactly.
And then when you send in all of that information, that goes in, they don't analyze it, they send it into the processing center, and the processing center will say, well, now this is the actual amount. So here's how you get around that. If it's a national bank, and that national bank has an 800 number, call the local representative. So the local representative of that bank, what do they have? They usually have a branch that you can go to. They got an ATM, they got a branch, they got an office. So now you're not talking to someone in California, you're talking to someone right up the street, right downtown. You go in and sit down with them, and you bring all the paperwork with you.
I was going to say that sometimes it's an advantage for you to see them in person, because if not, you're going to have to upload a lot of documents, a lot of scanning, especially running your own business, 1099s, tax returns, and you may miss a piece of paper versus you bring everything down to the actual bank, see them face to face. They can help you, I would say, a lot quicker than going through emails and back and forth.
And you know the biggest mistake that people make, I'll tell you right now, in case you're out there and you're looking to get pre-approved or pre-qualified and you want to upload the information to your bank, most people forget the other side of the paper. In other words, if you get bank statements and let's say there's 10 pages, you got 10 pages on your bank statement. A lot of people will send 5 pages. They send just the front of the page. But you got to flip it over. Now, sometimes if you flip over the page and it's blank, there's nothing on there. But it might be something, it's going to be something that they need. Because if the front page says 1 page of 10 pages,
I was going to say that.
And you only send them 7, they're saying, where's the other 3?
They're real particular. It could be page 10 of 10, and it's just the insignia of the bank. They want that. They want to make sure there's nothing missing on this statement, nothing hidden. And like you said, they're underwriting. They're being very strict because they have to be.
You might be hiding something. It might be something on that 5th page you don't want them to see, so you don't send it. They don't know that if you don't send it. Now you send it, there's nothing there. You say, so I sent it to them, but there's nothing there. They're just being picky. They want to see nothing. Yes, they want to make sure that there's nothing there. You might tell them on the phone, well, I didn't send it because there's nothing on that page. But they want to see that number of that page. Now you send them 10 of 10, they know they got everything. So, you got to be very, very careful. Always try to go to someone that's, if you possibly can, local, someone, a face, someone you can talk to. Not everybody you can talk to as far as in person, but at least if they're local, you know that they're riding around back and forth throughout the city, and sooner or later you're going to meet up with them. They're not in Texas. They're not in California.
I was going to say also, don't just limit yourself to banks. I mean, there's a lot of credit unions out there that do mortgages. You might have a local credit union or find a mortgage broker. That person will work with you and try to get your mortgage with several different institutions.
You just hit on something. Some people say, what's better, a mortgage broker or a bank or a credit union? Well, you got to find someone that can help you, that's accessible. Same thing, same conversation we're talking right here. Who's the person that's going to be able to assist you in getting that more? Who's the person that knows the programs?
Exactly.
Who's the person that has knowledge of all the programs out there?
Very true. I was going to say that too, because people don't realize, there's a lot of real estate agents out there. There's some that have no idea about these programs. My father, we deal with these programs every day. Time to Own, Bridgeport DAP, where you got to know certain parameters that this mortgage fit with that. I can look at the house and say, okay, we're not going to see this house because it won't qualify for CHFA. So we'll keep moving on to another house. While the other agent will waste your time and his and show you the house, not realizing it doesn't match your mortgage.
So there's, like I said, here we are now in February. Everything's just starting to thaw out.
Yes.
There's a lot of different programs that possibly are going to be out there. We're all waiting to see also what's happening, with the politics.
Yep.
There's a lot of politics. Housing is needed right now. Housing programs are needed right now. Housing, they always say with every recovery, the housing market brings up the recovery. And so, no matter who's in the White House, whoever is administration there, they want the economy to do good. So what are they going to do to boost the sales? What are they going to do to boost the economy? Something has got to be done. They just can't ignore it. So what we're looking forward to is what are these programs that are going to come out there, how we can get these programs to you or tell you how to make a decision. Should you wait for the program? Should you make a decision right now? It's all dependent upon where you stand. But no matter what, I tell everybody, regardless of the what's the best advice I can give you? Save your money.
Yep.
Have cash. Cash is king.
Have cash, because you'll see when it comes to these closing costs, some of these programs may run out of money. For example, Time to Own. It's been funded 3 times now since they started it. But you want to have that as just as a backup. You never know. You may find your dream house right down the same week the Time to Own runs out of money. So you keep saving your money. That's good advice for a first-time home buyer.
Save as much money as you can, whether you're first time, second time. Right now, the most important thing you can do is put aside as much money as you possibly can. And then a lot of people say, well, I can't save any money. I don't have any money. I can't save. Well, maybe you should put off buying the house.
I was going to say that too.
How are you going to end up saying, but I want to buy a house? Then I'm saying, well, then you got to sacrifice. Let's put it this way. The worst advice I could give you is push you into a house just because you insist on getting to the house, and then 3-4 months later you're in foreclosure because then you say, I can't afford the house, Mr. Scott. Any programs out there? And I'm saying, what program is there going to be out there to help you to pay your mortgage payment? You've just been there 3 months.
They don't look at you like, hey, shouldn't you be managing this? Did you take any landlord classes, stuff like that? There's a lot of things you can do to prepare you to buy this house too. Definitely.
So, you gotta be prepared. Say, banks always want you to have some money on the side.
That's very important.
They want you to have some skin in the game, your own money, some savings money. Gift letter, your friend, your relative, mother, father, have them help you out in the situation of buying the house. You can't just go into the situation. What if you buy a house, have it inspected, the furnace works perfectly. Now you get in there and all of a sudden the furnace kicks off. Now you need a new furnace.
How about that?
$8,000, $9,000. Who's going to pay for that?
Exactly.
You can't say, well, you should have known it wasn't working. Hey, it was working great when you bought the house, maybe it was on its last leg or something like that.
Or sometimes you'll buy a house. Remember, when you buy a multifamily house, if there's leases in place, you have to honor those leases. And it may say they're supposed to move out or leases up in May. You've discussed with the tenant, okay, you'll move out in May, but guess what? They've been in that apartment for 5 years. They may not realize it's not as easy as it says to get in a new apartment. And then all of a sudden they're asking you, can I stay till June? Can I stay till July? And you want to increase the rent. How about this? You may have promised one of your relatives, don't worry, you can move in in May, the person said they're moving out. So you gotta realize that everything's not written in stone when it comes to being a landlord, being a property owner. There are a lot of variables. You gotta make sure you're adapted to change, I'll say.
You just made a point there. If you're looking, a lot of people call me up, and they all want to, they say, well, I want to buy a multifamily. First of all, I read them this act. I say,
Read the right act.
do you know how much it's going to cost for a multifamily? Are you prepared to spend $400,000 or $500,000? I said, well, how come it costs so much? I said, well, look at it this way. A single family might cost you $300,000. You want a 2 and a 3. That's 2 to 3 times as much house. You can't buy it for the same price as you buy the single family house for. The insurance is going to cost you more money. Now, put yourself in the tenant's place. You're the tenant now instead of the buyer. Tenants increasingly now all across the United States, everywhere, are forming all kinds of tenants' rights groups. They're protesting the amount of the rents. They're protesting
Security deposits.
the security deposits. There's a ton of laws that are proposed in all of these legislatures all across America for tenants' rights. Some of them being, in the past, when you go to rent an apartment, it's 1 month's rent and 2 months security. A lot of the laws now, they want to limit that to 1 month security instead of 2 months security.
Yep.
There's a lot of laws that protected classes. In other words, you just can't go in and do what you want to do if you're a landlord, Maybe your previous landlord did that to you. Maybe it wasn't legal, and you just can't assume that, well, you can go do it to the other tenant. You'll be in a world of trouble.
I speak to some landlords. I talk to a lot of landlords throughout the month, but I talk to landlords that don't understand what an emotional support animal is or a service dog. They'll say, no dogs. Well, the state's law says if someone comes with an emotional support animal or a service animal, you have to consider that not as a pet. You can't even charge them a pet fee. And they'll say, what's that mean? So obviously they haven't done their own research and know what the current laws are when it comes to certain things.
Right.
There's a lot of protected classes out there.
You have an emotional support animal that can fly on an airplane. You can take an emotional support pet into a
Grocery store,
restaurant, all these different
and
places.
your apartment.
and your apartment. So you can't just jump up and, in other words, start throwing people out because they got an animal there, and now they got that certificate saying, I need this dog for my support, for my emotional support.
And how about the landlords don't understand what the mold packet is, the mold book that you're supposed to give to each tenant when they move in?
Or the lead paint package.
Or lead paint, that's what I mean, the lead paint. They don't realize you have to give this to your tenant, and it's the law too. But
these are federal laws, not just local law, state law, federal laws. You can get in a lot of trouble.
How many of these landlords come here, buy these buildings, and don't realize there's laws that abide. Your tenant has rights. You can't just push them around, I'll say.
Yeah, the tenants have rights, and there's going to be increasingly more rights for the tenants. Why? Because the government does not want the homelessness. So therefore, to eliminate a lot of the homelessness, there will be more protections for tenants and landlords. It works both ways. But what's going to happen as a landlord, we're saying to you, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Don't just say, I say to most people, it sounds good on paper. You're going to buy a multifamily, and then you're going to write down, this is my mortgage, taxes, insurance, this is what my rents are, and this is the profit, and here I am. It doesn't work that easy.
Not accounting for any vacancies or anything, or maybe what if there's a fire? What if there's flooding? Anything can happen.
Anything.
It's a business. You got to treat it that
Are
way.
you landlord material?
There we go.
Are you compassionate? Are you willing to sit down and listen and negotiate? If you're like, my way or no way, you're in trouble. So hopefully it gave you some information here. Give us a call, and we can help you out. You see the phone number right there. As you can see, we've done this for many, many years.
Yes.
But we can do everything we possibly can do to help you. So give us a call, and we can do a free consultation for you.
Yes.
So nice week. God bless.
Amen.